if we as an organization are not working to identify who will be the next leader of our IT department, then we are ultimately just disservicing ourselves. It's an investment into our own future by investing in our own associates.
Technology is transforming how we think, how we lead, and how we win. From Intervision, this is Status Go, the show helping IT leaders move beyond the status quo, master their craft, and propel their IT vision.
Welcome to Status Go. I'm your host, Jeff Tunn. Over a year ago, I wrote an article for Forbes titled, What's Next? Short-term and long-term impacts of the global pandemic on tech. That was in May of 2020. That just seems so long ago in pandemic time. One of the impacts I talked about in the article was the unleashing of remote work and the concept of work from anywhere and the impacts it would have on salaries. Allow me to quote the article. Over time, the increase in remote workforce could have an equalizing effect on salaries as location becomes less of a factor. Companies will soon be able to acquire the talent they desire for the cost they want, regardless of that person's location. This may be bad for a major city like New York City with high costs of living, but for smaller Midwestern cities with lower costs of living, it might be a good thing. What I didn't talk about in this article was the devastating impact the front edge of this trend would have on IT departments across the Midwest as IT pros, now able to work from anywhere, jump ship for larger, much larger paychecks. To combat this new kind of brain drain, companies need to think differently. They need to act differently. Today, I am joined by Nirav Shah and Sarah Scheffel of Republic Airways. Nirav is the Vice President of Information Technology, and Sarah is the Manager of Talent Engagement. Republic is a regional airline operating 1,000 flights a day across the country. Nirav, Sarah, welcome to Status Go.
Thank you very much, Jeff, and thank you for inviting us to this excellent podcast. I've listened to plenty of your podcast and looking forward for the next few minutes of conversation with you and Sarah.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. Very excited to be here.
Well, we're really excited to have this conversation because from our previous conversations, I've learned that you are involved in some unusual, innovative approaches to attracting and retaining talent. And that's one of the topics that is on the top of mind of IT leaders across the country is how do you do that? Before we dive into that, I'd love to learn a little bit about your background. Sarah, I'd love to start with you. Just talk to us a little bit about your journey, your career journey, and what led you to Republic Airways.
Absolutely. So I am a Indiana State Sycamore grad. So I went to school there and graduated in 2015 from their School of Business. Started my career in sales at the Indianapolis Star, but always knew in the back of my mind, in my soul, that my passion really lied in workforce development and really bridging that gap from the, collegiate space or non-traditional, collegiate space to the world of business and becoming a professional in your career. So I used to go to career fairs and I actually would not be interested in any of the jobs that they had there. I was asking the recruiter at the career fair how they got their job because I knew that's the job that I wanted. So post-grad, I did 1.5 years of sales. Wouldn't, change that experience for the world, but I knew it wasn't necessarily for me. And landed myself at Republic Airways as a college relations consultant, where I got to do exactly what I always kind of knew I wanted to do. I traveled the United States from Miami to North Dakota to New York, and then down into Texas for 3 years, really working with all the different collegiate programs in the country that offer aviation pathways, whether that's to be a pilot or to be a maintenance technician, or maybe you want to work in finance, but you have a really passionate knack for aviation. So I worked with that team for 3 years and then have since moved into the management role, which oversees the team that really is deployed out into the country, building out different pathways to Republic Airways. Again, whether you want to be a pilot or you want to work in IT, we have those opportunities available for you here. So that's my sweet spot now, and where I sit. And it's been a really quick, 5 years at Republic Airways. It's crazy to think that it's been 5 years that I've been a quote unquote working professional. But it's gone really fast, and that's because we've had a lot of fun building out a lot of the program that we have today.
Well, and it sounds like you've been able to align your passions with what you're doing for Republic. And I think that makes all the difference in the world.
It absolutely does. And I think it's like that old, quote that they used to say, like, you'll never feel like you're working if, you're having fun and you're enjoying your work. And, I can't say that every day is a rainbow day. We definitely hit some turbulence, no pun intended, but we really enjoy what we do. And I've really enjoyed what I've been able to build and grow and bring to Republic and to aviation over the last 5 years.
Well, someone else who's on the call today that I also know has found part of his passion at Republic is Nirav Shah. Nirav, do you mind sharing a little bit about your journey and what has brought you to Republic today?
Yeah, absolutely. So before I explain that, I want to say publicly now, and I hope my peer in the HR is not listening, but for a year I've been trying to poach Sarah to join my department. And every single time she has kept on rejecting me because of the things we just discussed, where a lot of people, Jeff, and you know this, they take their entire career to find a perfect match, a perfect job for them.
Yeah.
And Sarah has done that from day one. And if somebody's going to go to a job fair and ask a recruiter how to become one of you, right there, that she knew exactly where she wanted to go. And, the amount of impact that she has made to the future generations, whether they're kids from all the college that she mentioned from North Dakota to Texas, it's just phenomenal. I've never met anybody in my life that has had that much positive impact to the future generation in their career, whether it's aviation, IT, finance, HR, whatever it is. So thank you, Sarah, for everything you do. I'm going to continue my efforts to coach you, and I know you're going to continue rejecting. From my end, Jeff, I've been in this city for around 14 years. I moved from my country, India, to University of Missouri, Kansas City to do my master's. That was around 19 years ago. And then did my master's there. I started working for a small software engineering company in Springfield, Missouri, and also did my MBA during that same time frame. And then moved to Indianapolis to work for a company here called Interactive Intelligence. I spent around a decade over there. I went from software engineering to leading the department when I resigned from Interactive following the acquisition with Genesis. Had a small stint at a financial organization here, One America, and then came to Republic. What attracted me really to Republic was this fascinating airline industry that, I've traveled around the world and have used them as a consumer, as a customer. And I want to know what goes on behind the scene to get all those things put together in place. Well, I wasn't ready for the challenge, honestly speaking, because it is like running a symphony orchestra every single day. And the music is different.
Yes.
It depends on the weather. It depends on the kind of the day you are having. So it has been challenging every single day, and I thrive on it. I love that piece. And that's why I'm still here. So, and enjoying every single day. Every day is a new challenge, and just cannot wait to face today's challenge.
I love the concept of the conductor of an orchestra. That to me really describes the role of CIO running an IT department. Is the music is different every day. And sometimes you don't get the music before the day starts. You kind of have to feel your way along.
Yeah, absolutely. And in our world, Jeff, I mean, as a customer before joining the industry, where there would be a 5 to 10 minutes delay on the plane, I would really get antsy, and I'm like, come on, get your act together, guys. Like, and now I'm like, come on, just 5 and 10 minutes. Wow, that's awesome. I mean, and we take a big pride. I mean, Republic, from pretty much all regional airlines perspective, we have the highest percentage in on-time departures. So 99.96 or something like that. So it's crazy high. So even 30 seconds for us is like, come on, why is it 30 seconds? And your phone starts ringing. And but it's true. I mean, it's been a challenging. It's really an orchestra. So many different pieces have to come together for one of those planes to take off on time, and we have to do it 1,200 to 1,400 times a day,
Yeah.
and repeat next day.
Yeah, that is incredible when your seat changes, so to speak. Your perspective also changes on those
Yes.
types of issues. So, Nirav, let's talk about attracting and retaining talent and talk about some of the challenges that you are seeing. I know you and I have talked about this. I know you've talked with other CIOs and they're experiencing similar things. So, tell our audience a little bit about what you're seeing and what you're feeling right now, 18 months into the pandemic.
Yeah. So you touched on it a little bit earlier on, and that was around brain drain, right? And earlier, I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
think decades ago, when we would talk about brain drain, we would talk about people either leaving the country, really intelligent people, coming to United States, doing their masters, doing their PhD, and then going back to their home country and kind of really investing in their home country rather than coming here where they got the education and investing in United States. Okay, and that was truly a definition of brain drain. What has changed now, it's become more on a local level, and COVID kind of came and highlighted that a lot. So as states are now attracting talent, what COVID did for them was it made it much easier to retain talent and at least find talent outside the states. So
Mm-hmm.
certain industries, specifically around aviation industry for us, Jeff, certain IT positions, even though they were IT positions, they would be much more beneficial if they were closer to the headquarter, if they were closer to the maintenance hangar where the planes were worked on. So we were in the impression that most of the talent within IT would stay in Indiana and will hire and recruit in Indiana, or either will bring somebody from outside back to Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
Well, COVID proved it to all of us that, and many of us were wrong, and you can actually be anywhere. And technology is at the level where you can work from anywhere.
Yeah.
The bad piece of that is you have companies that are on the East Coast and West Coast that have a large amount of funding available. And for them, it's now the entire United States has become a market where they could go and find those crucial talent they
Yeah.
need,
Yeah.
and they can work from them. The problem you face that is it's becoming more and more harder on the company who are set in the Midwest or the smaller states for them to afford the salary that are being paid on the East Coast or the West Coast, or the benefits that are being paid from those coastal companies that have the backings and the fundings that they need. It's a win-win situation for them because they don't have to pay the exact same salary they pay, but they
Mm-hmm.
definitely can pay 20-30% more than what we could pay here in Midwest.
Yeah.
So what we are seeing is we are seeing this talent pool that are currently signing up for these virtual jobs where stay at home, work at home jobs for these coastal companies making 20-30% more. What I do fear into is, Jeff, as the market continues to keep going higher, everything's going to be fine. But if there is a one small dip, these companies are going to come back and say, hey, certain positions, specifically certain very high talented people who have been working in the virtual world, why don't you move closer to the headquarters?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the real brain drain that I'm scared of, where now we're going to have really top talent, the top 10 to 15% of talent that eventually will move out of the state of Indiana.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's where the real shortage, that's where I see like right now, the next 2 to 3 years, where I feel like the top, I mean, I've already started seeing, in fact, one of the guy who used to work for me at the interactive intelligence days, he just got recruited from Microsoft around 3 to 4 years ago, worked from Indiana. And just last year, they moved him closer to their headquarters. So now a very
Yeah.
intelligent data science guy just moved out of Indiana.
Yeah.
And
It's it's
I think
coming
that's going
true.
to,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think it's just going to speed up because I'm talking about pre-COVID situation where the move happened during COVID. The
Yeah.
post-COVID situation, you're seeing a lot of work at home. And now these companies are smart enough to know the top talent from all the work at home people. And very soon you'll start seeing them moving out of Indiana. So that's really going to have a big impact on the talent here in the state of Indiana.
Now, Sarah, this is more than just IT, right? You're seeing this across all aspects of your organization. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Every day.
What are some of the things that you've seen outside? Let's look outside of IT for a moment. What are some of the things that you've seen impact positively? What things are you creating? What are you envisioning to help attract talent to Republic?
Sure. So it's so interesting the way recruiting new graduates into our organization for the last 5 years. We've really seen this shift a little bit, honestly, before the pandemic, but even more so now, of wanting to feel like you are part of the organization and not just a number. The next generation of leaders that come into our organization, they don't want to just, sit in a desk and be issued a computer and have a Monday through Friday 8 to 5 work experience. They want to be involved. They want to see opportunities to get involved as early as their junior year in college, which is why you've heard of our internship program that we've instituted, and all the other pipeline programs that we have to enter the Republic Airways organization. But they really, the things that we've seen, which is great because you want individuals to join your organization to keep it fresh and to keep it growing and to keep it relevant, I guess, even to that next generation of talent, is that we're not just hiring people to come to work, but we're hiring people to come to Republic Airways and to ultimately make a difference at work every single day, whether they're in IT, whether they're implementing a new policy for hybrid work in HR, or they're looking at our dollars to invest in infrastructure for the organization in finance. We've really seen a shift in the type of individuals and the type of talent that we're bringing into the organization because of how much more passion they have, not only for the work that they're doing, but the impact it's making on the organization to ultimately be better 2, 5, 10 years down the road. But with that also brings, the other side of it that we'll probably get to.
Yeah. So one of the other things, and Sarah, I know you and I have not spoken about this specifically, but Nirav and I have talked about this multiple times, is diversity and the need for our organizations to be more diverse, be more inclusive. And so we're going to talk about the internship program specifically here in a minute, but are you using that to help drive diversity in Republic as well?
Absolutely. Yes. The internship program it's been established the entire time that I've been here, but we've absolutely grown it to something that we're extremely proud of now, to where we have a higher conversion rate from intern to full-time associate than we've ever had before. And I think that speaks to, again, the investment that you're making in a collegiate student in their junior year versus just, hoping that they're going to apply when you happen to catch them at a, end of semester career fair. But diversity, equity, and inclusion is a hot topic. If it's not a hot topic, then I think that next generation of the workforce is questioning whether or not you're an organization that they even want to be part of. The way that we're going to go about diversity, equity, and inclusion, specifically diversity and hiring into our organization, into our internship program, and any other collegiate program that we have, is broadening our net, right? We're not going to not go to IU and Purdue and Indiana State and Ball State and their general, campus career fairs. But when I'm at a state school, how can I tap into programs or student groups that are of that diverse population? So the request from myself as the leader of our campus outreach team is, we're not going to not go where we've been going for the last 5 years. We're going to still be present there, and we have a brand that we have to represent. However, how can we go further to make sure that our net is further casted? How can we make sure that we're present on HBCU campuses? How can we make sure that we are at all of the diverse conferences that are offered in aviation, from Women in Aviation to Latinos in Aviation and the National Gay Pilots Association, to ensure that our brand is spread throughout every little nook and cranny of the population, because that right there is how you diversify your applicant pool. You can't just expect to post it on Indeed and hope that somebody's going to apply. If you want to be diverse, you have to do the actionable steps to start to see the diversity established within your organization.
I love how you described it as casting a wider net, going beyond where you've looked traditionally. We've talked on Status Go before about this diversity and inclusion issue in tech specifically, about opening the aperture. Was a great quote from one of our guests earlier, and it brings to mind that same mental image of casting that wider net. I'd love to talk now about the programs, and I use the plural there because as I understand it, there's a couple of things you are doing, or at least are starting to do, and one we've mentioned, which is the internship program, and I'd love to hear more details about that. But then also there's, I'll call it an apprentice program, and that may be language that you don't use around the program, but it's that rotation across different areas of the organization, a rotation throughout IT that Nirav, you've talked about. So let's start with the internship program. Can you describe what is entailed in that and what the experience of the intern is when they join Republic?
Absolutely. So the internship program for Republic Airways is really targeted on giving that student the realist experience that we could quite possibly give for someone at their junior level in their collegiate footprint. So we have internship opportunities that are available throughout our entire business. So when we look at our business, my team, we really kind of separate into two different buckets. You have the business operations, which is going to be your HR, your supply chain, IT, finance, and accounting. And then you have the aviation operations, which is going to be engineering, aviation maintenance, flight operations, flight attendant operations, dispatch, all of our aviation safety programs. So really kind of targeting that student that's going to school specifically around aviation, but then we're targeting the students that are really going to school specifically around business. Because that's one catch. If when we started this internship program probably 3.5 years ago, we would go to a campus like IU and they don't have an aviation program. And they would come up to us and they'd be like, "Why are you here? I don't want to be a pilot. I don't want to be a flight attendant." And we're like, "No, we have a business. If you want to be in computer science, we have a whole department dedicated towards a technological tube that basically flies you through the air," right? So that was the biggest hurdle of where we had to build our brand around the business opportunities, because everyone kind of knew the aviation opportunities. Yeah. So we now have opportunities across the entire organization for students that are in their junior year, is typically what we're targeting. So summer of their junior year going into their senior year, where they will come on site with us here at Republic Airways on the north side of Indianapolis and spend a good, 10 to 12 weeks full-time, paid, being part of our business. And we don't make it any short of shy of giving them full autonomy to ask questions, to ask why we do it that way. Have we ever thought about doing it this way? We inundate them and we include them in just about everything that we're able to include them in. So that has seen more success in the last, 2 years than I would say in its entirety, because we treat the interns as if they are associates. We give them responsibilities, we give them tasks, we give them goals. They go through performance evaluations. They even manage like their own little version of paid time off if they have a dentist appointment or they have, they want to go on vacation. So we try to make it as real of an experience as we quite possibly can, because it then allows us to really bridge that gap. We can teach anyone aviation. We can teach anyone the inner workings of working in IT at Republic Airways. But if you don't have a passion for aviation, or you don't have a passion for information technology, and you're not, inundated with the culture here at Republic, then, maybe we aren't the place for you. So we've seen twofold. Some people come here and they learn this is not the degree path that I want to go down, because we've made it such a real experience for them. And I feel bad because then they go back to their parents and they're like, Mom, Dad, I don't want to be in supply chain anymore. And they changed their major and now they're going to school for 5 years.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
we at least help them solidify, yes, this is what I want to do, or no, maybe it's not what I want to do, because of how real of the experience we try to make it.
I could almost hear a lot of our listeners, Sarah, as you were describing how you have to teach why you are at these job fairs when there's not an aviation school at IU as your example, because I think a lot of our listeners are in the tech sector, tech product, tech service company, and they go out to these job fairs and the students are like, well, I don't want to write code. And they're like, well, we have marketing, we have accounting, we have HR, all those different things. So it's almost a universal issue sometimes when you're recruiting for those, I'll call them off brand. And I don't mean it that they're outside what you do, but those, what people perceive as your brand roles and responsibilities.
It's so true. Yep, absolutely true. And it was kind of fun there in the beginning, right? Because I thrive on employment brand and like getting people excited, because I didn't know. I was like the epitome of the students who were like, Republic Airways, I don't want to be a pilot or a flight attendant.
Yeah.
Because it didn't ever click in my mind that it's an entire business that has to be run. So it's a lot of fun when you watch the light bulb click, like, oh,
that's what
I can work in aviation in IT. Who would have thought?
Yeah. Story for another day, but I have a brother that's a pilot for a different airline, and he keeps trying to write software for pilots. So he's trying to go kind of the other way. He's the pilot that wants to dabble in code. So Nirav, I want to pull you in and talk about this rotation concept that you and I discussed a couple weeks ago, and what you're trying to do with a partnership really with Sarah, what you're trying to do in IT to fight this brain drain with this rotation concept.
Absolutely, Jeff. As we talked about the brain drain, we have to be, this is something that came with Republic Airways, where a lot of the companies here, they have, good or the bad, they have their competition here in town. So a lot of time they swap talents, right? We don't have that. We don't have another airline in the state of Indiana. In fact, we don't have in many of the surrounding states either. So for us, Republic Airways, it was absolutely critical. And for years, we have been building our own talent, specifically focused on the aviation side of things. So you know about the Lift Academy we started around a couple of years ago for our pilot training program. It also now does a maintenance apprentice program. So technicians coming from there. So we had that. With the realization of this post-COVID world, we decided to kind of replicate the same program for the technology team, as well as for the finance team, as well as for the back office teams. What that is very similar to an internship program, because as Sarah mentioned, our internship program is so close to our full-time employment program. We just don't separate. In fact, I'll give an example. A lot of the interns from this summer itself actually made presentation to our executive leadership. And some of their ideas are actually a real-time project that we'll be implementing with an extension of internship into fall and spring semesters. So our internship program, like Sarah mentioned, is not separate from a full-time employment. So this rotation program is exactly the same, but in many cases, it's usually following the graduation. So what we see as what we visualize is, as the student finishes probably the last year of college and a simultaneous internship for us, that internship will take them into a full-time rotation program. And that rotation program is probably around 2 years, give or take. And then they would be asked to rotate between different departments within the company. Specific to IT, what I have done is, we do a robotics automation. We have obviously a data team. We have a virtual reality, augmented reality team. We have an application development team, services team, a lot of different, typical IT teams. And what we do is, once we have this candidate or a student coming out of college sitting with us, we work with them and highlight them. hey, here are the different options within IT. What are you really passionate about? And then we are, probably there are one or two that we kind of make them required. There would be a third rotation that would be optional that they would pick based on the choices we give them. In
Hmm.
that way, we have a 3 or maybe 4 rotation program of 6 to 8 months each. And then at the following of that rotation program, we sit back with them. We have gathered the feedback from the leadership in all of those rotation programs. And then we take the candidates' feedback and say, what did you enjoy the most? What were you most passionate about? And then going back to what we talked at the beginning of the podcast, where how Sarah found her passion on day one. A lot of
Hmm.
candidates they don't. So this is kind of giving them that opportunity, a safe space where they can try something for 6 to 8 months, another something for 6 to 8 months. I've done some jobs where I really did not enjoy, but I felt like I was stuck in it. This is
Hmm.
like, hey, I know
Yeah.
there is an end here. 6 months from now, I'm going to go and say, okay, I'm never going to be close to that job because I did not enjoy that at all. Or in the first 3 months, I find my passion and I'm like, hey, this is something I really like. What I've seen is students as well as people who are kind of very early part of their career and don't know where they want to go, they really love this kind of a program. So it not only allows us to build a well-rounded talent because they have done a lot of different things in IT, or if it's a enterprise level rotation program, then they have learned finance, they have learned HR, they have learned IT, and then they finally decide where their long-term house is.
Hmm.
Within IT, it's the same. They've done robotics because it's a lot of time, it's not too much of programming. They might have done data, which is completely different skills than just the software engineering. And then they find their passion, say, hey, this is what I really enjoyed. They understand the business very well because they've done a lot of different things. And then, the long term benefit of it is they enjoy what they do, they found their right match, and now they're going to committed to the mission for a long term, than stuck in a job that just paying them. That's all.
Yeah. So, are you intertwining those types of rotations? In other words, someone does a rotation throughout the organization and then they do a separate rotation through the IT roles, or are those two separate things?
Yes and no. So they are two separate things. So somebody specifically with an IT major and they really want to stay within IT domain, they would come and they would do rotation within the IT departments. Okay.
Gotcha.
There are some who are not sure. They have a mixed degree, and they might say, "Yeah, I've done a little bit of IT classes here and I've enjoyed it, but I also did some business classes and they were fun as well." So we would then put them through a rotation program that would be 6 to 8 months in finance and then HR, and then they would come to IT. And even in those, we kind of try to find some alignment. An example would be our HR department has HRIS team, so they manage our HCM system.
Right.
Okay, from a junior level administrative perspective. So we would put them there, so they're still close to technology, but they are learning the business side of it. Following that, they would move to IT and still support the HR system, but now on an advanced administration as well as building integration. So they still carry on what they learned at their first rotation and bring it to IT and go a little bit deeper. Similarly, we'll do between finance and IT, where we both have a data teams and they might do a rotation between both the data teams, but just a different kind of perspective on what they work on. So we do that as well. So they would go between the department rotation as well. And then sometime when you finish an enterprise level rotation system and they say, hey, as I did this, 6 months with finance, 6 HR, and 6 IT, I have found my passion to be HR. And then we might say, okay, then how about we do a 1 year within different departments on HR, and then we
Gotcha.
finally find the home for you. Now, all of these are completely, like I said, a full-time job with the benefits, with the pay packages that we would. But this is something that we believe are investing in the future of not only our organization, but future for our city and our state, because this allows us to create this well-rounded talent with acumen, business acumen, technology acumen, and then hopefully they stay within Republic, where Republic continues to be an attractive, offer for them. But if not, at least they'll be somewhere else, and will be a much more well-rounded talent than otherwise they would just doing one thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Sarah, I've got a question for you. At the end of this rotation, what happens if either Republic or the person, they're not aligned? That it's not a fit. What do you do?
It's a really good question. And we haven't gotten there yet. So, full transparency. However, I think it comes down to there has to be
Hmm.
alignment to where we don't want to bring someone into the organization or into a role that ultimately isn't going to make them happy, because that then in turn isn't going to likely give us the quality of work or the experience that we're trying to create within our own teams. So as I'm trying to forward think and know that there could come a time where we have a student who, rotated through 3 different organizations and they're like, none of these are for me. Or, we think this student did their best rotation here, but the student thinks they did their best rotation here. How are we going to kind of bridge that gap? And I think it really comes down to what is the immediate need of the business, but also what is going to potentially push that associate to want to grow within the organization, right? Yeah. So it's not about the role that you necessarily played in the rotational portion of your path here at Republic. It's more so which organization that you rotated into do you potentially see yourself being a leader within? Yeah. Right. So if I was to come into the organization and be in the human resources track, and I rotated between, the actual true world of HR with employee relations, and maybe I did an area in systems, and then I ended in recruiting, I could look at the advisor that's managing this program and say, I want to be a leader in talent acquisition one day. So maybe I didn't necessarily enjoy cold calling and trying, to push someone to come work in our organization, or I don't really like looking at resumes, or I don't really like interviewing and going kind of through the same thing every day. That wasn't really, for me. But what I do like? I really liked working with people all day. Yeah. And I really liked the marketing and the advertising aspect of my rotation in talent acquisition. So it's kind of pulling apart what you enjoyed and getting the student or getting the associate to start thinking long term of what area do you want to be a leader in, and not necessarily the day-to-day responsibilities that you were tasked with through your rotation.
It sounds like an excellent coaching opportunity for someone as they're going through the program and as they're nearing the end of that program. Now, I've got a question for both of you. How did you get buy-in from the executive team for this? It sounds like a pretty substantial commitment on Republic's part to performing these rotations and having people move around. So how were you able to get the buy-in?
I can kind of just speak first from my perspective, because, leaders like Narav, I had to have buy-in from, right? Mm-hmm. So when I initially was tasked to start thinking about it, and I think it's important, that it wasn't just like a dream child of mine that I just, sat at my desk and thought like, I'm going to create this program. There was already some interest, within the organization. And I think it's because we have leaders in our organization who were part of a program very similar to this, where the question was, what could that look like for Republic Airways? And so as we started really identifying the different rotations and what this could look like, the team had very strategic conversations with the different, VPs in our organization, like Narav, and then also up to, our executive, C-suite level of the intention of this program isn't necessarily to, solve the leadership needs that the organization may have right now. But the mission of the program is ultimately to develop those aspiring, aviation professionals, business professionals, to ultimately create that pipeline to leadership. So, at some point, maybe never, because I think Narav will work for the rest of his life. But at some point, Narav might say, I think it's time for me to retire. And if we as an organization are not working to identify who will be the next leader of our IT department, whether that is at, a manager level, all the way up to a director level, all the way up to a VP level, if we aren't working to identify who that next leader is going to be, then we are ultimately just disservicing ourselves. Yeah. right? So it's an investment into our own future by investing in our own associates. And that's really what this program is designed around. I mean, yes, of course, these students will go from internship to rotational, and then they'll land in their final placement. But the individuals in this program are the individuals that will lead the organization one day. And when you had those conversations with the business leaders of, this is the investment into the future of the organization. It's not going to solve any of our problems maybe right now, but imagine if we don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Imagine if we don't invest in it right now. And it was really those conversations of making sure that we were aligning ourselves to be in a really good place 5, 10, 15 years from now. Because if we're not doing it, other companies are.
Yep. So you're building leaders. I love that. And
Yeah.
I love how many times that name or label of leader has come up in our conversation today. Nirav, from your perspective, what things did you need to do to get executive buy-in on this?
Yeah, and before I answer, when we talk about leader, we don't mean just people leader. We mean leader in their space. It could be a
Yes.
technology leadership,
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it was fairly simple. And Jeff, we have talked about this in the past. So technology teams, probably around 15 to 20 years ago, were considered you sit in front of the machine, do your work, and go home.
Yep.
That's it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's not the case anymore. Today, the most successful technology teams are the one who understand the business the most. Okay, you cannot just sit here and just do the coding based on the specs. You need to understand the business. You need to be going above and beyond and add the value, and sometimes tell the business that, hey, we can do this using this technology. For that to happen, it was very critical where we build this talent pipeline. Very often that not that comes from the business side. And this
Yeah.
rotation program was my explanation to them to saying, I can go to Purdue or I can go to a technology school, really a good technology school, and hire really good software engineer, or go to the company next door and maybe poach somebody from there. But if I can go and get somebody from my operations team who already know how the operations side of our business work, or a flight attendant team who kind of know how the in-flight services work, and have that person come and join IT, and that's going to be way more valuable. So this rotation program was just an easy bind for them to understand that. And they've seen that where once I got to Republic and we got some people from business move to IT, they have seen the value that has brought in as compared to just a hardcore IT person. Now, going back to diversity, I think you need both. I mean, you need the balance of hardcore IT person as well as the business knowledge that kind of help each other. And that's what we are trying to build here. So uh, I think it was just an easy bind. And, the first thing we had talked earlier, which was this was natural to Republic. We were doing that from aviation because of the area we are in, because of the competition or lack of competition here. We had to build our own talent. For the years, it was focused on pilots, pilot shortage, flight attendant shortage, mechanics. Over the last 12 to 18 months, we said, okay, we know that and we have heard about it and we are doing something about it. Why can't we replicate that for back office? Because we are equally going to start facing that shortage as well. So it's kind of version 2.0 of what we were doing for the aviation industry.
I love that version 2.0 of building leaders and extending that into the IT professional. As you know, Nirav, because I know you've listened to several episodes of Status Go, and Sarah, my guess is when Nirav reached out to you, you might have listened to an episode or two yourself. But we are all about action here on Status Go. We like to leave our listeners, who are the IT leaders throughout the country, we like to leave them with a solid call to action. So I'm going to start with you, Nirav, and then Sarah, I'll come to you here in a second. What's one thing our listeners should do tomorrow because they listened to our conversation today?
I think all the IT leaders are being given a wonderful, wonderful platform to build their legacy. And the legacy for them is to build the future leaders for their companies or their state or their city or whatever it is. And the best way to do that is to invest in talent when they are young, find them and give them an opportunity, give them a safe space where they can experiment, they can fail as well, and then have a conversation so that they can find that right passion, just like how Sarah did on day one, right? So,
Yep.
and make it that it doesn't remain job for them. It just becomes their passion. So I think that's why we started this rotation program. I request every single leader to start at least start an internship program or have a rotation program. Start with one individual and invest in one individual, and make a leader out of that one individual for the future.
I love that. Create your legacy. You cannot start soon enough in doing that. Sarah, same question for you. What's one thing our listeners should do tomorrow because they've heard our conversation?
So it kind of goes off of what Nirav just said of as the current IT leaders throughout different organizations, you have the ability to really make that impact on the next generation of leaders. And I am a next generation of leadership, right? And if I didn't have the support of a leader like Nirav, I don't know that I'd be on this. I'd be part of this conversation today.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would have had the support from him and his ability to make an impact on other leaders in our organization. So it's kind of twofold, and it all kind of goes full circle. But if you have the ability to kind of impact the next generation, do it. Because I can guarantee you that there are people in your organization, whether it's directly in your organization in IT or it's all the way over in HR, there are next generation of leaders who just want to feel safe to share their ideas. They want to get it wrong and be told what they did wrong so that they can learn and not just have it done for them. There's probably a lot of people who, if we just had the chance and we just had the leader who took the risk on us, could move the business in the direction that you need to move the business. So that would be my call to action, is if you don't already have someone identified, again, not directly in your own chain, but in your organization, that you're able to, pluck out and mentor and coach and guide to really be part of that next generation of leadership. And again, to Nirav's point, not people leadership, but to just own a program, a process, an initiative, a change, whatever it may be. Find that person or find that group of people, because they are waiting for you just as much as you're probably waiting to identify them. And I wouldn't still be probably moving the needle forward as quickly as I do if I didn't have the support of leaders like Nirav in this organization.
Now, Jeff, one personal reason, and I need to candidly open up, is the reason I invited you, Sarah, is I thought at the end of this call, you'll say, I will join IT.
Well, that brings us full circle, doesn't it?
Is this a job interview, Nirav?
Every conversation's a job interview.
You're right.
No, Sarah, that is excellent advice. I love how we started out talking about attracting and retaining talent, and the way we ended is you do that by building leaders, and not just people leaders, as we've been talking about, but leaders throughout the organization. I really want to take the time to thank both of you for taking your time for joining us for this conversation today. It has been tremendous, and I really appreciate it. So thank you both.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Sarah.
Yes, thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
To our listeners, if you have a question or want to learn more, visit intervision.com. The show notes will provide links and contact information. This is Jeff Tunn for Nirav Shah and Sarah Scheffel. Thank you very much for listening.
You've been listening to the Status Go podcast. You can subscribe on iTunes or get more information at intervision.com. If you'd like to contribute to the conversation, find Intervision on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter. Thank you for listening. Until next time.